My name is Leah McGrath. Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers and supporters of this event. I mean, wow, it has been an incredible few days, and I'm very honored and thankful to be here and appreciate your time here today, too. So, as he said, my name is Leah McGrath, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director for StateRAMP. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, how that came to be, what StateRAMP is, as a nonprofit organization and how it works. But first I want to tell you a little bit about what led to this development of StateRAMP. So my background is in state and local government and had worked in state and local government or around it for over 20 years. This is actually the Indiana State House. This is where I had my first job out of college. But after that, had prior to joining StateRAMP, served as deputy mayor for the city of Fishers, Indiana. And throughout my experiences in government, like many of you, I worked in public policy and administration, and I often found myself right at the heart of what we called modernization projects. And so trying to figure out how do we bring innovation and technology so that we can serve our residents and citizens in that digital environment where they wanted to be working, as well as how do we bring a modern workforce or work environment to our workforce was a challenge because we were trying to figure out how do we balance adopting new technologies with needing to be secure as well. And as we started talking with other government leaders, other state leaders, and the private sector, we realized this was a challenge that was happening all over the place. And I know having conversations here, it's still a challenge, right? How do we validate the cybersecurity of the technologies that we're using in government and have confidence that we're doing what we can to be good stewards of the data and the infrastructure and the citizens that we serve? And so through those experiences really led me to meet the founding steering committee members of StateRAMP. And so StateRAMP is a nonprofit. We were founded in 2020 by a group of state leaders. So it included about a dozen current and former state chief information officers, chief security officers, privacy, procurement, who were really struggling with that question of how do we adopt new technologies or how can we make sure that we are protecting our infrastructure and our data. And then it was joined by private sector leaders as well and subject matter experts who came together to ask that question of what if we worked together and how could we? Whenever there is a common problem, firmly believe there's an opportunity for a common shared solution. I want to share a quick story before we get into how StateRAMP works because I think it underscores the why StateRAMP was founded and what we're trying to work toward. It was on a beautiful Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon, I guess, about a year ago. In one of our participating governments, we work with over half of the state, so close to 30 state governments who are recognizing StateRAMP and working with StateRAMP to validate the cybersecurity of the technologies that they're using. We work with hundreds of counties and local governments and starting to work more in the education sector as well. So just for that background, so one of the states that we're working with about a year ago had a really bad day, right? So it was a Saturday in the fall. Everyone was watching college football, American football. That's what we do on Saturdays. And one of the technology leaders for this state in the South got a phone call and then had a few more because there was a problem. One of the technology providers that was used by a majority of the counties in their state had had an attack. By the end of the weekend, 55 out of 75 county governments were down in the state, offline, because one technology provider had had a breach and it was not contained. It took over 3 months for those 55 counties to come back online and to be fully operational. So during that time frame, and we were working with the leaders there to figure this out, during that time frame, many of those government employees had to work without computers, and they were not allowed to connect to the state systems. The state had turned it off to make sure that nothing else happened, which meant they were having to work without information they were needing to have and used to have. That is a very common story. I'm sure you all hear it, and it's not unique. And one of the things that's not unique is the way that the breach occurred. We know that data tells us about 50%, if not more of the time, more often, breaches are coming through third-party suppliers. And that just underscores the why StateRAMP was founded, to say, how do we manage this risk better together? StateRAMP is a journey. I like this slide because as we came together in 2020 and the steering committee formulated what StateRAMP would be and how it would work, I can tell you since we've launched, it's iterated, it's improved, it's going to continue to be iterating. And that's cybersecurity as well, right? That journey that we see a lot of states and local governments are undertaking right now. We started our cybersecurity journey in government saying we got to protect our own environment. We need to train our people. Now we're really shifting to, hey, now we also need to figure out how do we develop a trusted relationship and confidence with the providers that we're partnering with those technology companies that we rely on. And that's part of this journey, is that we're in a transition period. And I say that, and I think it's important that we know there's no end point. It's going to be ongoing. But we're in a transition because everything is becoming connected. More and more things are connected. And that's where those risks are lying. So we think about often the SaaS solutions that we're using to deliver services, software, right? And we're using that more. So government's becoming increasingly reliant on private sector solutions. But it's anything that's connected. It's the heating and cooling system. It's the elevator. It's the sensors on our fleet. It's the online printing services or our tax systems. All of those things that are connected, we've got to think about differently. And as we're in this transition, it's a challenging thing in government. I don't know who works in government here, but I can tell you my experience is it's a bit siloed. We have the people who buy things, we have the people who use things, we have the people who protect things, right? And so as we're trying to figure out how do we manage third-party risk, it's really hard to coordinate all of those different siloed groups and to make sure that everyone truly understands their role. I think we've reached a point where people say we need supplier risk management, and we've reached a point where everyone understands we have individual roles in cybersecurity. It's now going deeper to say, and what is my accountability for each of those roles? And that is why StateRAMP was formed, was to help with this, was to help bring a shared solution for risk authorized management program. That's what the RAMP stands for states and local governments. And so, like I said, we're a nonprofit. We have members from the private sector as well as public sector. We're government-led, meaning the majority of voting members on our committees come from government. We have private sector, though, involved because we need all the voices to really understand how do we tackle this together. And the way that we've done it is through our program. We've created shared common standards. So we really started with saying, what are the standards that we want to hold third-party suppliers or measure the cyber posture of third-party suppliers against? And so with that, then, when we've got those common standards, we're able to have a common method to verify and validate those standards and to have a more consistent method of buying things, using things, and protecting things ongoing. So our goal in doing this at the end, imagine if that state leader, if the service provider who had the breach in that state and those 55 counties had gone down, if there had been ongoing continuous monitoring and reporting, if every month they had to report and there was a known vulnerability, that if that known vulnerability could have been shared with the information security teams of those 55 companies or 55 counties, then those 55 counties could have perhaps taken action to prevent or mitigate. And that's what we're trying to do, is to help improve transparency into what that cyber posture is at the very beginning of the buying process, but also throughout the use of that technology. And then to give the provider community more clarity on what is required, right? It's not all these moving targets, but here's what's required. Here are the standards, and here's how you achieve it. Here's how you demonstrate it. And to be able to do it one time through one StateRAMP certification process to one centralized security team, so that then you can use that and share that information with your government customers and therefore have that framework for continuous information sharing. Just a little bit more about our program. We only have a few minutes, so I'm going to go quickly. But you can find our security requirements. So it's online at stateramp.org/templates-resources. And our committees, we've got several committees aboard that come together every year, and they look at our baseline requirements and our process. Our process, you will find, is modeled in part after FedRAMP, which is the Federal Risk Authorization Management Program. And we wanted to do that for 2 reasons. One, because many providers who serve the federal government also serve state and local. They may use different cloud products, they may have different services they're offering, but they're familiar with that program. So we wanted to create some consistency there. We chose the NIST 800, our committee and leaders chose the NIST 853, National Institute of Standards and Technology Cloud Computing standards, as our baseline for standards, because the federal government has a lot of requirements that flow down to states and local governments that can also map really well to NIST 853. And then we're working on that harmonization. But you can see more details. We do have impact levels, so it's subsets of the controls based on the sensitivity of data that's required. For our program, we've got authorizations. So we've got StateRAMP Ready, StateRAMP Provisional, StateRAMP Authorized. This would be our highest level of certification that we have for cloud products. So if you have a software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, could go through this program. StateRAMP Authorized, like I said, is the highest level. StateRAMP Ready is going to show you, hey, this is a product who's met the most minimum critical controls. It's a smaller set of controls. One of the things that we're trying to do is really align with the MITRE ATT&CK weight scoring as well, so that we're not just a compliance checklist. That's not what any of us want. What we want is to be driving toward the best security outcomes that we can, which is why we're constantly looking at this to make sure that we're doing this in a smart way. This is our newest program. So this was something that after launching StateRAMP, we started really listening to our members, our provider members. We have around 260 provider members or companies who have joined StateRAMP, and as well as our state and local and education members. And one of the challenges they were facing is that a lot of the products that are being used in government weren't quite ready for the full audit. They're just beginning, maybe, their cybersecurity journey. And so we wanted to be able to provide a roadmap for them to help them along their journey. And that's why we have our snapshot program. It's also awesome if you have a new innovation, you got a new product that you want to try to bring in, this is going to help you do that faster. And so our snapshot program really this is where we're bringing in those MITRE ATT&CK weight scores, aligning them with the NIST 853, most minimum critical controls, and it's like a mini audit. At the end of it, you're going to have a score, and you're going to be able to see in each line item of criteria, where are your strengths, where are your risks, where are your gaps. If you're part of our progressing program, you're going to have a monthly consulting call with our cybersecurity consulting team, who's going to help you figure out how do you get better in the most cost-efficient and security-focused way. And then have those updates to your quarterly snapshot scores. Continuous monitoring is the foundation of our program. It's really what we think makes the difference, and we're not all the way there. We've got a lot of great ideas, I think, coming from our members on how to make this better. What it means is if you're StateRAMP Ready or authorized every month, and for progressing snapshot, every month you are reporting to our centralized security team. And if there is a high vulnerability, if there is maybe one of your underlying technologies has had some problems, right? Because we got to look at that whole IT supply chain. If there is a change in ownership even, right? Something that would be worth reporting, that's going to be captured. And then through our escalation guide, if it's something like a high vulnerability that's open, or maybe there's an issue down the supply chain, it's going to trigger a notification out to your participating governments so that they know and can take action as needed. This is the last slide, really, but all of this is on our website. So we do publish those products that have gone through our full authorization product on our authorized product list, and then you can see progressing products as well. I would just say if you have ideas, if you have interest, if you want to collaborate, we invite you and welcome you to join this journey with us. You can learn more at stateramp.org, and you can contact me anytime, Leah at stateramp.org, or I'll be hanging around here as well. But really appreciate the opportunity to share with you a little bit about our StateRAMP initiative, and appreciate your time. I see you standing. Thank you.